But first I want to thank them, so give them a hand. And of course also our other sponsors, namely Server Grove, Ingewikkeld, O'Reilly and JetBrains. JetBrains being the awesomest of the few. Come at me, bro.
So as I said, I had a hard time coming up with a subject, and I was browsing on the Twitter webs last weekend, and I noticed that PHP 7 was supposed to come out this week. So long expected. PHP 5 has been around for 11 years, if I did my research correctly. So that's quite some time. It's a major version. Apparently we skipped 6. Those of you who are involved with PHP long enough, you know why. I think it's mostly because if we would go for a PHP 6, there would be many books who are already outdated, because there are books printed on PHP 6. I think they're out for 10 years maybe already. I don't know. It's a really awkward situation. So we go from 5.6 to 7. So while I was researching this stuff, because I haven't really looked into PHP 7 specifically before, I found out quite soon that it's actually postponed. And it's postponed for some sort of, it's not really perfect enough or something like that. So there's still some rough edges, and a release candidate will ship somewhere over the coming weeks. I think somewhere. Another one. Yeah, another one. Release candidate 7 or something like that. So that's the status there. I thought it might be interesting, as I didn't know all the new stuff myself, to share with you what I think are the most important new things, some important backward incompatible things, so stuff that will break, and some of the pros. So yeah, the gain for existing applications. So why upgrade when you don't want to use all the new syntax flavor? Syntactics, is that? Syntactic flavor. Thank you. Some of the new stuff, the stuff that you can use if you upgrade, and some breaking changes, some stuff that will or might cause problems when you choose to upgrade. So why bother to upgrade? Well, I haven't had the time to do an extensive performance benchmark myself, but apparently it's a huge performance gain again, because that's been the pattern since I think PHP 5.3, that there is at least 20% performance increase. So that's interesting. According to this Zend research, they did a benchmark of Drupal, WordPress, Magento, and similar applications. They benchmarked it as 93% faster on average. That's quite a bit. I think that's worth upgrading alone. So that's one. All the details about this research are on this page there. I can tweet the link later. Why bother? This is 93% faster on average. That's quite a bit. I think that's worth upgrading alone. So that's one. All the details about this research are on this page there. I can tweet the link later. Really, everyone has seen this one. So it's now removed. It was already defaulting your time zone to UTC, which is a pretty sensible standard most of the times. But it's now not throwing up a warning anymore. It's not converting into an exception or an error in PHP. So yay, that's nice for that. And well, yeah, obvious. You can use all the new shiny language stuff. So what's the new shiny then? I have some examples. There are a lot of new things. Didn't really have a hard time to choose from, but even if it is a major version upgrade, I don't think there was that much new in terms of new functionality. It's mostly a rewrite of the internal engine, making PHP faster, making future development faster and more stable, and importantly, most importantly maybe, more memory efficient, which is interesting. So one of the new features that are actually in right now is the scalar type hints. As you can see, I think I have, yeah, see, that's a scalar. A scalar is the simple type, so to say. So you have the integers, you have the strings, you have floats, doubles, booleans, even those type of things. You can now use the type hints in function and method signatures like you would in other languages, Java, .NET, stuff like that. I think it's actually a pretty nice addition. Personally, I'm a fan of strongly typed code. So this makes it possible now. But it doesn't really, just in this way, it doesn't really enforce the types now. So you can still, no, it doesn't. I'll show you that later. So you can still call the multiply function with strings in here and it will still execute. It will still do an implicit cast, as it is called, to an integer, but only since you're doing the multiplication. So that's another one. So I'm not, yeah, this is an example of a string type hint. So you can do this in PHP 5.x already, right? I mean, this is syntax highlighting is right. You have a function defined with a parameter that is of type string. You call the say function and with the right parameter and it will work, right? Yeah, no. The funny thing is it will throw a catchable fatal error saying that the argument, this one, must be an instance of string. But you gave a string, so that's funky. It will say this. This is, do I have, yeah, so I don't have to walk over there. The reason is that it expects a object type string. That's not possible in PHP. You have just the real type. The real string there, the string of characters, not the class or the object instance of type string. So this was actually just funny. I had an interesting GIF there. You think you're doing something very cool, but then you hit your foot. And so now we have PHP 7, so yay. And now you can, wait, I'm missing a slide here, but let's wing it like that. So you have the I wanted to explain why, but so you have the scalar type hints, which are interesting, but they don't really have the value that you want them to have unless you declare the strict types is 1. You can use them, but this enforces that you can actually not put anything else other than, in this case, a string in the function call. So you have to call this with a string as a parameter. This has actually been quite extensively covered by last month's speaker already, but Erik?
Is this on a file level or on the application level?
This is on a file level. More specifically, it is from the file that you call the function from. Yes. So that's an important thing, and it's actually, I think that is a good thing, trademark, because it's a hard thing as well. You have to wrap your head around this. Let's say you have this in a separate file. Is there a laser pointer in this thing? Yeah, nice. So let's say you have this little bit in a separate file. You include that stuff in a file where you call this one, and you do not declare the strict types in the file you're calling this one from. That would not throw this type error. Yeah. I think that is a confusing thing, but it's a good thing. Reason why? Legacy applications, maybe? This makes it possible, because you can use this syntax in 5.x already, it makes it possible to use some languages to a minor extent in 5.6 applications still, and still use the same code on PHP 7 installations. But, well, it's not my choice. So as you see here, by the way, you have the fatal error, uncaught type error. This is an exception which I will briefly discuss later. Last month, Damien has already been elaborating on the new errors quite extensively. So I've explained this already. So we have return type hints. Damien mentioned a little bit about that as well. But it's basically just an indication of what type of object or scalar type you would return from your function or method or whatever. I haven't followed that discussion. That was the discussion about, right? Is void the type? Or did it
It's the
become...
return type. It has been decided like a few days ago.
Yeah.
No? Not void?
No, what you put there is void, but when you
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
what comes out is still nil.
Okay, yeah, it's because we don't know void in PHP, right? So, there's that. This is interesting for... this will also, throw errors in case you do it wrong. Well, that's useful. This is actually an exception type, or a throwable, as you would call it in PHP 7. I'll get to that later. Well, this is some messed up code. As I'm returning a simple XML element from a function that should return a DOM document, that is not allowed, and then it says the type error. It even says why. It even says why, yes, luckily. That's good. It's actually an exception, so you have a complete backtrace and stuff.
So the type error is the same when you have the type hints and the return type. You need to catch for type error.
Yep.
In both cases.
Yes, if you have that dynamics in your code in the first place, that's important.
Really
Yeah.
good, but it would be better to have two types of
return
exceptions.
type error.
Yeah.
Yeah, return type error and type error.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Write pull request for it.
Not
So an interesting thing is that you have or PHP is still doing the implicit castings on its own as you're used to. In this case, I specified the return type of float, and I'm returning an integer here. If I execute this function, it would return a float. It's casted. If I would call this, or if I would specify that I would return an integer here, and I actually return a float instead, it would cast it to an integer. Use it at will. Be careful, yeah. So we have this no word operator. Anyone know how to pronounce this? Coalesce? Coalesce? Oh, pretty good. Thanks. So pre-PHP 7, you would write code like this. So if this thing is set, then this, and otherwise this. Now you have, I think it's the same in JavaScript, if I'm not mistaken, or some other language. Oh, yeah. So if you use the, it's a double pipe in JavaScript, thanks. So if you use the question marks, double question marks, it will just do the same thing, but shorter. It's useful for input processing or stuff like that. So just small thingy. Yeah, breaking changes. Here's the fun part, I think. So all the errors and exceptions are now, or all the E error and E recoverable error are now exceptions or errors or throwables, as you would call them now in PHP 7. I won't go too much in detail because Damien explained this last month. But, for example, if you do something like this, it will obviously say in PHP 5.6 already, or 5, maybe 4 probably, it will say, yeah, we don't have this method on object null. It just doesn't exist. So in PHP 7, it will say an uncaught error, right? Because there's no try catch around it. You can catch these type of errors in PHP 7. Something about the exception or the throwable hierarchy here. So here we have the old school, let's call them that, exception types, like the runtime and the logic and everything that was below that. Now we have an interface of throwable, which is just like the iterator interface, the traversable interface, sorry, not implementable by yourself, but you also have the error classes now, like the type error we've seen before. They all inherit of throwable. So if you want to have a try-catch clause, if you want to write a try-catch clause that catches everything, you should catch for throwable and not for exception anymore. That's an important thing.
Could you also instantiate the error classes?
I'm not sure.
I don't know why I would do that, but for science, maybe.
For science, with the right amount of willpower, I'm pretty sure you can do this. I'm not really sure if that's possible, to be honest.
Exception if you want to do that.
Yep.
Create an exception if you want to do that.
Error exception. I would start using those. Yeah, exactly. So this one is, I think, something that you should really look up because there are more examples here. But the variable handling have been changed due to some internal engine changes or rewrite actually. While it used to be right to left evaluation of variables, it's now left to right. In this case, in 5.x and before, you would this would be evaluated first, and then you would and then this little bit. In 7, it's changed to first from the left. We start here, and then over there. So that's a tricky one. It will break your code if you're unlucky. I hope not. But these are the kinds of breaking changes that you would really have to test your application for, and that you can't, or that are pretty hard to spot if you just look at your code, I think.
If you would run PHP unit to PHP 7 as well, your code wouldn't break.
Yeah. Well, proper unit tests would probably help you uncover these type of things. Maybe the Humbug it's called, I think. Those type of tools that just change random variables in your code. During tests are good to uncover these kind of problems, but
It's good to know that
be
it's
careful.
can arise, yeah.
Yes. And you will not know it before it goes wrong, likely. Yeah, this is a bit of the same thing. You have, in PHP 5.x, you get this evaluated as a whole, if this is the statement, mind the double $sign. In the new case, you would just evaluate the variable first, and then you would access the array. So yeah, the ASP short tags and the script tags have been removed, I think. Yeah, who was using them? Okay, so yeah, I just had this picture of a cat there. The MySQL extension is now really gone. Yay. It was deprecated already, it's now really removed. Oh yeah, that was actually it, more or less. Short summary. I hope this makes your step towards PHP 7 a little bit easier. And yeah, good luck upgrading.